Hi, I'm Alison. Welcome to Dream Chasers Adventures in Happiness, where my band of superhero guests and I share with you tales of daring do, life-changing journeys towards living our best lives. If you're after an injection of inspiration and ideas to live the life that you want and deserve, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hi there, and welcome to the show where we serve up conversation, concepts, and belief that it is entirely possible to create what you crave. If there's something stopping you from pursuing happiness, whatever that looks like to you from a career or lifestyle point of view, the stories and insights covered here are designed to help. Today, I am joined by my former amazing client and friend, Amy McLean. Now, Amy and I first met in our old lives when she was one of my PR clients. Years later, she became one of my coaching clients when she was seeking a career change that would really truly make her happy. After 18 years as a communications and public relations professional in IT, Amy is now a registered physiotherapist, specialising in care of the elderly in the community. So it's quite a big change. Now, today we're going to talk about what Amy was originally doing and why she felt stuck. We're going to delve into 3 big life events that Amy personally experienced that caused her to review her career path and seek a change. And we're going to talk about how she made the decision to become a physiotherapist and the training it entailed and how she feels now that she's actually in the role. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you very much, Alison. Great to be here.
Great to see you. So just to set the scene, can you tell us a little bit about your original role and like what it was that wasn't working for you?
Yeah, so, I mean, looking back, at the time, I hadn't realised it wasn't working for me, really. It wasn't that I was particularly unhappy, unsatisfied. There was a number of life events which we're going to come on to talk about, I know, that kind of made me realise. But what I was doing, so I did my first degree in marketing, scary to say, almost 25 years ago. I cannot believe it. And it was and I think probably a lot of people can relate to this. Like when you set off on your first career path, you're not really sure what you're doing. You're kind of just finding your way and you kind of end up in something. But that said, I had a very good 18 years career in the IT industry. My last role was for a big IT industry in the software sector. I was director of global public relations. So it was a big job, lots of responsibility, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. I traveled a lot all around the world, 24/7 working. Yeah, exactly. And as I said, you know, at the time, I did enjoy it, or I felt I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite normal to be working at 4 a.m. in the morning. You know, it was, and then my husband and I, we wanted to start a family. And after about 18 months of trying, I realised that the environment probably wasn't one that was going to be the right environment for us to conceive. And then as it happened, you know, we actually had to start fertility treatment. So I decided to take a career break. And I had every intention of returning. But it was starting to have a family and it just wasn't the right environment. I was traveling, so I wasn't with my husband for a start.
Makes that slightly difficult.
That's going to make it difficult. But also just the stress and pressure. And it was then, I think, that I started to realise day to day, it probably wasn't healthy.
Yeah. Okay. So with that in the background, I know that you experienced kind of 3 fairly sizable life events that caused you to really deeply evaluate what you needed and wanted from a career. Are you happy to share a little bit about each of those things and kind of what you learned from them or what it taught you?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I guess I alluded to the first one, which was the main starting trigger point, which was the wanting to have a family, going through 3 rounds of IVF. Sadly, we weren't successful. But during that process, said I'd kind of taken a sabbatical. Sadly, my stepfather had terminal cancer, and it was quite a fast process. He died at home, And I actually spent a lot of the last 6 months of his life living with my mum, supporting her, caring for him at home. Now, during those 6 months, it was just the teams that came in to support us all were fantastic. McLean nurses, occupational health therapists. I don't remember if physio was such, but just lots of community teams. And I guess it was probably then that I started to think, maybe there's something to this. I'd love to have that impact on people's lives, in such a traumatic time. So there was that. And then not long after, sadly, my grandparents passed away 6 weeks apart from each other. They lived till their 100th year, and they lived independently in their home together until I think the last 6 months of their life when they went into a residential home. But what allowed them to live together all that time as they became more frail were, again, community teams that would go into their homes, support them day to day, so, care workers, but also teams that came in and made adaptations to the house. They could safely mobilise, get upstairs, remain independent. Physios were a part of that. And again, that just started to kind of grow the seed, I guess, if you like, as to me thinking about, if I couldn't have a family, I could actually use this as an opportunity to do something totally different. I didn't feel so held down to, I'm not saying that, you have to be, you have to have, to have children. But in my mind, I kind of felt freed in a sense that, because we were going to have children, I wasn't held down to having to earn a certain amount. I could really think about what I wanted to do. And do something different. I found it very difficult. Looking back, I think I realised that it would have been very difficult for me to go back to my life as it was, not being able to have fulfilled my desire of having a family, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So actually, I love that, because it, what was actually quite a tough thing to acknowledge and accept, I guess. I can only imagine when it's something you really want, you want the family, and it's not going to happen, that you started to look at it and look at what you could take positively from it, or turn it into something positive. And those other experiences with your stepfather and then your grandparents and watching those teams started to kind of sow a seed and gave you a sort of strong sense of really the idea of wanting to work, or thinking that was a good idea to work with potentially the elderly. Can you talk a little bit about the discovery process that kind of led you to physiotherapy as the ideal field? So you're in a place where you're like, actually, I'm watching these teams, I've seen them do this, I feel quite inspired, I'm motivated by that and the idea of doing something of that ilk. But what brought you to physiotherapy?
It really was. It really was a process, and because you held my hand through the entire process. And this isn't an intentional plug for you. It absolutely was what helped me make the decision and give me the courage to do it, because it's a massive change for all the reasons that we've spoken about. So I knew I wanted to go probably into the care sector. What that was, I had no idea really. I was thinking nursing potentially, and then I always want to call it Winter Wonderland, Work Winterland.
Wonderland.
Wonderland, sorry. Wonderland, sorry.
For listeners, that's my online course.
We're coming to Christmas. That's why I've got it in my head. So yes, it's this online course that obviously you provided, Alison, and it just helped me work through. What it did was it stripped back kind of what you normally do when you're thinking about getting a new job, whatever, or changing career. You thought, well, what have I got my experience in? What am I good at? And actually, that in itself is holding you back. It's like locking you into making the same decisions. It's really narrowing your thinking. And what I loved about Work Wonderland is that it just stripped all that back. And I remember so vividly, there's this one visualization exercise. I think it was one of the mindfulness activities that we you encouraged us to do. And it was, you think about where you were most happy, most at ease, and feeling most positive. And for me, it was a hospital environment. Now, which seems a bit strange given that, you know, what I'd gone through. But actually, for me, I had memories of it being positive, of hope. Yes, obviously lots of negative things happen in hospitals, but also lots of positive things. So that was my happy place. And then
amazing.
I think it threw up all sorts of ideas: social worker, care worker, nursing, physio was one of them. And then another part of the activity is to think about the things that you love doing that make you you as an individual, not you as a professional, but as you as an individual. And for me, it was being outdoors, exercise, care, exercise, put those things together. And so then that led me down, let's look into physiotherapy. But then, of course, looking into physiotherapy, that opened up a whole new world, because it was totally more than I thought it would be as a role.
Okay. So different aspects kind of helped you uncover more about yourself. I think it's an important point about that whole taking yourself out of the professional guise and stepping outside of the experience box, because it's so easy to use those parameters to kind of convince yourself that's all you can do. Like, I remember years ago I was the same when I was thinking about what kind of change I wanted to make, and all I could come up with was, well, I could freelance as a PR, but you know, like, because that's been my experience for 20 years. What else can I possibly do? So yeah, I love that. So some of the exercises help you take yourself out of that box and look at yourself and your skills and your interests in a you know, with a fresh perspective. And it helped generate ideas, and physio was one of them. So when you researched the physio, did it feel like it fitted all the ticked all the boxes? Like, so the criteria that you kind of ended up with through the course, did it meet what you needed? Like, when you were looking at it, because that's one of the exercises I get people to do is really then go and research and take a look at these ideas in more detail to kind of go, is this what I was expecting? Do I feel drawn in and excited by the idea, or is it like, no, not so sure now I'm looking at it? What was that process like? And what did you learn through that research?
So it really did. It was, again, I had no real true idea exactly what a physiotherapist did. I guess I knew of physiotherapy in the context of how I've maybe engaged with physiotherapy. You know, I know, running injury, and I was rehabbing a running injury, and that in itself didn't really appeal to me. I didn't really want to be. I wanted to be working in the community. I knew I wanted to be working out in the community with probably an older population and more within a care element. Now, obviously, you know, rehab is care, but it wasn't until I started researching that I realised just how big of the role and scope of a physiotherapist is, and that largely because I forgot to mention the fourth event, actually, COVID. This all happened around COVID, which gave me the space to think about it. But also what COVID did for the profession of physiotherapy is it just really put it on the map, and it kind of evolved the role. So it was more medical. You worked as part of a multidisciplinary team working with doctors, with nurses, with care workers, with occupational therapists. You were expected to almost wear a multiple hat, particularly in the community. So I got to do all the things I potentially wanted to do. Yeah. But it wasn't until you have to research that, because it's not what you traditionally think of as a physiotherapist. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, because I think a lot of the time we have an idea in our head about what any kind of role might look like or be. Yeah. But typically there are flavors of it, and there are ways in which it pans out. And unless you genuinely go and look at it and play around and see what exists, you know, it's very easy for your mind to kind of just shut you down and kind of go, well, no, I don't want, like in your case, I don't want to do the kind of rehab physio that, you know, with people with, you know, athletes with injuries or whatever. Yes. Because you could have easily just gone, well, no, that's not for me. That's not going to work. But by looking at it, you're like, oh, look, there are versions of this or varieties of this that fit what I'm really interested in. I hear that a lot from the people that I work with when they're looking at all sorts of different types of roles and career paths. So I love that. So that helped you kind of decide that was what you wanted to be. You wanted to be a physio. What did it take to retrain? Like, from your...
I think, again, I probably, until I'd done the research, didn't really appreciate what it was going to take. And that was going back to university and doing a 3-year undergrad degree. But I also just relished the prospect of going back to uni. Like my first university experience just wasn't everything that I'd hoped it to be. And so I kind of was quite excited about getting the opportunity to do it again. Again, sadly, it was kind of around COVID, so it was a little bit different. But yeah, going back, doing it, you know, studying something that I genuinely was interested in. Also, when you go back as a mature student, it's just such a different, I just found it to be such a different experience. You know what you're doing it for, right? So you are motivated. I'd come from you know, my work ethic was very different to when it was when I was 19, 20 years old. So I was used to working up to 7 days a week at times, you know, doing long hour days. So I kind of took that with me just because that's how I was used to working. I almost treated the degree as a new job, if you will. And I just loved it. Just learning. I've forgotten, there was something else I was going to say now, but I can't remember. Anyway, move on.
That's okay. So you went back to university, but this time round, you chose it. You knew why you were there. You really enjoyed it, and you brought the whole work ethic from your 18-year career with you.
Yes.
And I know I'm gonna, because I know you won't say it, but I know you end up acing that degree. Like, you got the top academic achiever award for your cohort, and like something like 94% in your dissertation, which kind of shows, right, that clearly it's the right thing for you. You loved it. You gave it your all.
I was definitely in class swap, yeah.
And I'm assuming that skeleton behind you is part of the whole kind of learning process.
Yeah, this is Arnold, and Arnold absolutely helped me get through that degree, yeah. He's a little bit worn now, actually, bless him, but still standing strong.
So you graduated about 15 months ago. Can you just, like, what have you been doing since? Like, what's it actually been like in reality?
I mean, at the risk of gushing, I really feel it just feels like it was made for me, this role, or I was made for the role. And probably in this time of my life as well. But I basically, so through the summer after graduating, I had a part-time job working in a private neuro hospital in London, doing acute stroke rehabilitation, which I loved. And then immediately, once I got my 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗘𝗟𝗟 registration, so you have to have medical registration to practice, in September, I started what you call band 5 rotation. So you obviously do your 3-year study, you have clinical practice, but you have to, when you graduate as a junior physio, and you do what you call rotation, so 6 months in different services to kind of continue learning and developing the skills. I knew, as I've said, that I wanted to be in the community and care for the elderly. So I work for the local trust to where I live. And I'm now in my 3rd rotation. I've done rapid response. So that's when you respond to patients within 2 hours and the whole premise is keeping them out of hospital, or it's expediting their discharge from hospital to keep them home. So very medical kind of led. Then I did community rehab. So that's typically working with patients that have had like long stays in hospital, and they need rehabbing in order to come home and be safe within the home environment and get back to all their baseline. And I'm currently in the Falls Prevention and Bone Health Service. So doing little exercise classes for the old over 65s. And it's a real mix. I do home visits, have a clinic, exercise classes. But yeah, I love it.
I can tell. So I don't need to ask you how you feel like doing it.
Yeah. It's sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, carry on.
I mean, in terms of what I get now I'm here. I look back and I realise just how unhappy I was in doing my previous role. As I said at the start, at the time I just didn't associate myself as being unhappy, and that's because I've rediscovered the joy of a Sunday. Like, I don't dread Monday mornings. Of course I have everyone has bad days, but I look forward to Mondays. I look forward to going to work. I equally look forward to my weekend because I know I've worked hard and I deserve that time off. And the other thing that it's done is I've been able to do more stuff for me. So I'm now so much more energized as opposed to exhausted. That I've been able to pick up running again. I hadn't done that for 10 plus years because I just was so exhausted all the time. And, again,
Amazing.
looking back, quite not clinically depressed, but just low mood, just didn't have the motivation to do anything else. So yeah, I've rediscovered myself, I guess. I mean, at the risk again of sounding a bit cliche.
Not at all. It's wonderful, isn't it? Because when you're in the right thing, no matter how hard work it is, because it sounds like it's a lot of hard work, it energizes rather than depletes you, and it leaves you free, like you said, to then in your spare time have the energy and motivation to go and do the other things personally that really light you up. So I know you've done ultra marathons and like crazy things. So it's been brilliant having you on the show, and thanks so much for sharing your story and particularly the personal life events that have helped you kind of highlight your need for and want for a change. For our listeners, I know in terms of learning more about you outside of the day job, you've also done a couple of guest lectures at 2 universities. Like what's that been on?
Yeah, so that was actually on the topic of my dissertation, population health. So, basically to the next generation of physios, I've just gone in and done a guest lecture talking about population health, the evolving role of the physio within that, the opportunities of the physio, plugging community, because we definitely need more physios in the community. Just trying to, I guess, get students to think about the different roles of physiotherapy and what it means to population health, really. So but again, that's an example of where I have used some of the skills from my previous role without kind of thinking about it particularly. So yeah.
Kind of helping educate and excite the next generation that comes in. I love it. I love it.
Hopefully that's what I did.
Well, I'll make sure this information is included in the show notes on the website for anyone who wants to learn more about you or about that in particular. So again, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really hope that Amy's story has provided some real inspiration, that if you feel called to make a change, you can absolutely figure out the right path and then find a way to make it a reality. If you know of anyone who would benefit from listening to this conversation and Amy's brilliant insights, please do share this episode. And until next time, just know that I believe in you and your ability to identify and go after the feel-good changes that you seek. So go do your thing.
Thank you for listening today. I hope our time together has got you thinking about your own adventure in happiness. So please do get in touch. I'd love to hear more about your story. And why not join our Dream Chasers Unite community? There is nothing better than an adventure shared. Until next time, be brave and go create what you crave.